We are losing not just assistants in hygiene, but even managers. We're losing a lot of people.
We have a shortage of hygienists. Surprise, surprise.
People are leaving for a myriad of reasons, and I don't think it's going to get easier in the upcoming years.
A lot of practices that have reached out to me are utilizing more preventative EFDAs.
One thing I see with doctors who are struggling with the hygiene shortage, they are tired. I mean, their bodies are hurting.
My key function is to really start getting more education out there on utilizing who you have in a practice so that this job shortage that we have, especially in Maine, we can kind of elevate who we have so that we can bring that to another level and start having the assistants go for their CDA, go for their EFDA, provide more services so that we have more access to care in the state.
My goal is to share insights and business strategies so that dental professionals like you can grow your company. My plan is to grow this podcast to reach and support more people in our field. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. It helps the show grow. Plus, I don't want you to miss an episode. Thank you for being a part of the journey.
And we are back with another edition of Nobody Told Me That, another repeat guest, somebody who I've known for a while. I think so highly of her, and I can't wait to talk about what she's up to and the whole world of dental assisting, which I really don't get into, but I should more often. And with her help, I'm going to. Stacey Singleton, how the heck are you?
Thank you. So good. Doing so good. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah.
Very excited to share kind of what's been going on.
Well, and I think what I really want to get into today, and we'll talk about your site, we'll talk about like what you've been doing, because you've been grinding on the whole expanded functions, elevating the role of the assistant for a while, really kind of unacknowledged because you've been up in Maine. So, the rest of the country doesn't know like all the stuff you do in Maine. So we'll get into that in a second. Why this is so timely, I think, is because all I hear is lack of people in the office. People are leaving for a myriad of reasons. And I don't think it's going to get easier in the upcoming years because it's not like people wake up and go, I'm going to go work in dentistry. So we need to grab this challenge and attack it. And I think you're one of the key people that's going to help us with that. So you have been teaching expanded functions dental assisting for years up in Maine. You started your own program and even got it accredited, right? So talk a little bit about that. What's going on up there?
Yeah, so thank you. So I've been teaching the EFDA program for this new program has been at least 4 or 5 years at the community college. I'm in Southern Maine, and it's been hugely successful. We've had a lot of full classes and graduates, usually twice a year, we're offering classes. And in the state of Maine, the scope of practice for EFDAs allows anything reversible. So we can do any reversible procedures. That includes corona polishing and SDF placement. You're placing fillings. You're really helping elevate everything within the practice.
Okay.
And my key function is to really start getting more education out there on utilizing who you have in a practice so that this job shortage that we have, especially in Maine, we can kind of elevate who we have so that we can bring that to another level and start having the assistants go for their CDA, go for their EFDA, provide more services so that we have more access to care in the state. So that's the goal. I went and took my program and my curriculum and presented to the Maine Dental Board and got it approved. So now I can independently teach those classes. And so I'm approved for the EFDA program as well as dental radiography.
Wow.
So students can come and we do a dental radiography review course. They have to do about 10 hours of home study, and then we do an in-person day. If they pass the final exam, they can submit right for their Maine licensure. So
that's amazing.
It's very exciting. Yeah. So lots going on here.
So the surrounding states in New England, has there been any interest for you to bring your program there?
Yeah, there's definitely been some interest. I've had a lot of local dentists from New Hampshire inquire about the program, but the state won't allow my program. They have their own program, so they don't have a reciprocity with the state, unfortunately, yet. But I did inquire to them to see if it could happen,
Yeah.
on some level. But because they run their own program right now, I think that that's where it's staying. So,
Well, if there's a demand though, like it makes sense
yeah.
to make sure that we can keep people in the industry.
Us on Southern Maine, we have, we're right on the border and we have a lot of people that live in Maine but work in New Hampshire or vice versa because it's right on the line. So
Mhm.
that was really where I was gearing towards was this is a program that can help both states,
Yeah.
and because we have so many offices within a close proximity, it would be nice, but we'll see what happens with that.
So tell me about the kind of person who wants to go kind of the extra mile because most of the time, dental assistants, they're kind of trained on the job. They're hired. Maybe they do a lateral switch from a different position. Are people coming into dentistry through the program? Or are they coming to the program because they've been in dentistry?
They're come to the program when they've been in dentistry. We have a prerequisite to get into the program so
Okay.
that it's an expedited course. So in order to get into the program, you have to already have your DANB CDA. So that means that you've already acquired your infection control, your general chair side, and your radiology. Those three components make up your CDA. You also have to have 2 years of experience. So that just to get to that point elevates a candidate, for the program. And then it's a very expedited course. So we go through a 1,200-page book with all of the assignments, every page they have to read.
Wow.
And then day one, I put handpieces in their hand and start skill building. So I know other programs wait and kind of incorporate things little at a time. I teach just like I learn. I'm a very hands-on person. So I want to support them and give them as much hands-on experience so that they can have patient care right off the bat.
Yeah.
We can work on the textbook, we can work on the test taking and all of that. I want them to have practical clinical skills right off the bat.
And that's the hardest part to teach because, if they're kind of clumsy, that's hard. I was a really bad assistant. I think you and I have talked about this. I was really bad. My boss says that I was okay. I wasn't. He was just kind. But I didn't realize there was a way to hold the instrument at first. And he had to teach me. And I'm like, this feels so weird. And then it becomes normal. But until someone shows you, and then it takes hours to get it right where it's second nature. And, it's really a skill. So four-handed dentistry, you're teaching that, I'm assuming.
So in the dental assisting program, so I also taught a dental assisting program that we would do at night, and that was basic dental assisting. So we would show four-handed dentistry. All of the EFDA candidates already have that under control.
Okay.
But they have to work independently. The whole point is that they're working, they don't have an assistant typically. I always tell them, I said, if you get an assistant as an EFTA, you are in the bougiest office.
I was going to ask,
and good for you.
Yeah, because honestly,
if that's what you have, that's fantastic, but that's not realistic.
Okay, all right.
So we go over a lot of different means of working independently. And it's very nice because one of the things that I implement right off the bat is every student that gets into the program, they have a supervising dentist and they have a signed contract with that dentist.
Oh, okay.
That dentist has to come in and give a half a day volunteering to my course.
Nice.
So I want them to bring in their skills and their feedback, and that's how I implement different techniques and things like that throughout the class. And it makes it great because all of the students get a different perspective other than their doctor.
Right.
Their doctor is their way and that's it. And that's wonderful because that's the reality of what you're going to be doing, but you need to see that there's other options out there. So they all have to come in and grade typodonts. They have to grade all the preps and everything. So it's very interactive.
I imagine that's kind of fun for the dentist too. They get to play professor for a little bit.
They do. They have a good time. A lot of them, when I give them their homework of prepping the typodonts, the number one reaction is, this takes me back to dental school because we prep, there was over 100 preps on the typodont that they've had to do throughout the course.
It's wild. It's wild. So SDF was not something you were teaching years ago, I don't think.
No.
Right?
No.
So for diamine fluoride, very effective. The little kids, it still stains them black, right? I keep hearing that they're working on one that doesn't stain black, but then I was told by a professor in Utah last time I was out there that it's not as effective. Has that changed? Do you think there's going to be one that's not black?
I mean, I'd love to see one that doesn't change it black, but we use the traditional and it works. And you can always put a glass ionomer or something over the top of it to take away that darkness. But
Yeah.
yes, it does definitely change it black.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of startling to see, but and I'm sure, kids are cruel. I'm sure somebody's making fun of somebody if they
Yeah.
see that, but
We'll always cover with some sort of a composite or buildup of a sort so that they have coverage, especially if it's something in the anterior. Yeah.
and one thing this professor was sharing with me, it was Dr. David Prince, so shout out to him. He was my host. Fantastic guy. But he was also sharing that they're putting it also on a lot of elderly patients too.
A lot of like class 5 buckles, things like that, because those are huge blowouts right away,
Mhm.
hard to access, they don't have the dexterity to get in there. So, yeah, so it's really nice to put on those as well.
I think that's so smart. You would think somebody would think of that, but when it was pointed out, I was like, "Oh, that's brilliant." Like, even all these years we're in dentistry, Stacey, like, still, like, there are things that I'm like, "Ooh, they're doing that," and pretty wild, pretty wild.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as far as the assistants come, they're going through your school, you get them
Mhm.
all trained and everything, and then they already have a signed contract there. Where do they go from there? Do they go to this next level so that they can excel at that office, or do they see this as a stepping stone to something else? I mean, what's that traditional career path looking like?
I'd probably say 85% of them have their dental home.
Okay.
These are people that are usually already vested with you. They're trustworthy. They're showing up every day. They've been in your practice for a period of time. I interview the students because I want to know the relationship between them and their doctor. And if they don't have a good relationship or they have a hesitancy, it's not going to work in the program. There's a high demand of communication that needs to happen between the doctor and the EFDA. And the doctor is putting their license on the line for
Yeah.
this EFDA. So they're practicing underneath their licensure. So you have to have someone that you fully trust and are confident in their clinical skills because they're working underneath you. So they're representing what you've built for a practice. So I
Mhm.
really go into a lot of communication with the EFDA on how would you handle this situation and how would you handle this situation. Same thing with the doctor. I interview the doctor and ask them because it's so important so that when little trials and tribulations come up within the operatory on an open contact that the EFDA has now after completing the filling, what's going to be said? What's going to be done? We need to talk
Yeah.
about these verbal skills that,
Yeah.
now what? So that the patient, doesn't panic that the doctor has to re-prep again or something like that.
Yeah, like,
So,
don't say, "Oh, look at this crater." Like, you don't wanna say
yeah.
things like
So
that.
there's a lot more to it than just, oh, they can do a filling now. We
Yeah.
kind of go over all aspects of it. So from the front desk verbal skills to scheduling, because that's a big thing, is understanding the scheduling component of when do we schedule with the EFDA? When is it okay? When is it not?
Oh my gosh.
Procedures are good. And so,
Oh, that's just a complexity I didn't even think about. One thing that I hear all the time, and I was never good at this as a consultant. I was okay with it as a manager because, we controlled our schedule. But as a consultant, I saw a lot of offices looking for help with scheduling, but block scheduling, expanded functions, I was never good with that because the office themselves weren't good with it. They hadn't worked out the schedules. They kind of just thought they'd work it out as it went along. And it was always a disaster. And they would always end up bringing in somebody who'd done something. But I don't know of any that were able to implement it and keep it implemented. That's the number one thing I hear about any scheduling changes. We did it and then it just went away. So
yeah.
that's a heavy lift for you to teach them effective scheduling.
It's something that never stops. You have to continuously talk about it. You have to continuously massage the schedule
Okay.
all of the time. There's so many different avenues on ways you can implement someone in an office. So that's where it's important to understand the dynamic of the practice, how the doctor's working. Do they want a single schedule and have the EFDA follow them from patient to patient? Or do they want to run their own EFDA column? And do we do it like a block schedule? And are you doing more restorative? So I refer to them as a restorative EFDA or a preventative EFDA.
Okay.
And there's some that like both procedures. There's some that only want to do restorative. There's some that only want to work as a preventative. I have a lot of practices in Maine, a lot of pediatric offices that have EFDAs that they can't get hygienists. We have a shortage of hygienists. Surprise, surprise. And in a pediatric office, you're doing a lot of coronal polishing. So they can hire EFDAs and do a lot of coronal polishing during the exam. They're doing all of the coronal polishing, the OHI, nutritional counseling.
Wow.
They are doing SDF if needed. They're doing sealants. They're kind of encompassing everything other than subgingival scaling. So they
That's pretty
cannot
wild.
subgingival scale.
Okay, so then let me ask this. I'm assuming there's some more money involved when
Yes. Yep.
okay, because I mean, it's a lot. And plus, you're getting an elevated, I guess, certification, or is it a certification or a license?
It's a license.
So
Yeah.
there's liability
Yeah.
that's assigned too. So I think, I mean, obviously, I hope that they would get paid more. So it sounds like they do. With restorative versus preventive, when you say restorative, do you find that a doctor is really looking to add the restorative because of the potential with income? Do you see the preventive because of the hygiene shortage? Is there like a trend there that you've seen, or is it all over the place?
It's kind of all over the place.
Okay.
Right now, a lot of practices that have reached out to me are utilizing more preventative EFDAs. Even they have an EFDA on staff that typically does, restorative because they have a shortage of hygiene in their practice. They're
Yeah.
starting to utilize them more as preventative. You can get a little bit of a kickback. They're not trying to take the job of a hygienist by any means.
Right.
Like they stay in their lane for the most part. You know what I mean? I can't speak for all EFDAs, but they should stay in their lane.
Yeah.
And, everyone has their scope of practice that they need to understand what they can do. And it's not to take the place of a hygiene, column whatsoever, because they cannot subgingival scale. So during an exam, the doctor would still come over. And if there was an area where he noticed calculus or something subgingival, that's the doctor's responsibility to then do that. But then the EFTA can do the rest of the appointment.
Yeah.
So
Do you recommend running an EFTA out of their own room?
yes, I do.
Okay. All
Yep.
right.
Except during the training process. I highly recommend they have to get certain clinical hours. So even after they're done in class, they still have to get in-person hours in their office. And I find it more helpful if the EFTA stays with the doctor, just like they were a regular assistant,
Sure. Okay.
So when the doctor is done prepping, they're getting up to leave. So then the EFTA comes around to finish the restoration. They know what the tooth looks like before he started. So that gives a little advantage there. They
Oh,
know the
sure.
behavior of the patient. They know what to expect. They know the isolation. They know all of those things because they're there. If they were coming into the room, the operatory to finish, but didn't see all those things ahead of time, it can be a little bit more of a struggle for someone just starting out.
Okay.
So it's nice when you're there and chair side and you can just finish, when the doctor gets up to leave.
Do you have any doctors that are working with only EFTAs? Like their office is all EFTAs?
I have a couple. Yep.
Okay.
And there's doctors that they love them and they can't imagine working without one. And then there's
Yeah.
ones that want no part of it. And that's fine, because it's not for everybody. Like I said, they go to dental school for a reason,
Sure.
they're
Sure.
the doctor. So some of them don't want to let go of some of those tasks and that's okay. But the ones that do, oh my gosh, it elevates so much in their practice.
I would imagine, I mean, just freeing up time. I mean, you can talk to a patient a little bit more, offer more
Yeah.
services. You're not as rushed. I mean, the one thing I see with doctors who are struggling with the hygiene shortage is they are just running and they are tired. I mean, their
Yep.
bodies are hurting. And, some of them are my age, not spring chickens. It's like, you can't do this
Yeah.
sprinting from operatory to operatory, but they need to service because, oh my gosh, the hygiene shortage is going out so many months. It's
Mhm.
crazy. I was talking to
Yeah.
one office and they're in September of 26, and that's the
Yeah.
regular hygiene. I'm like, you can't service your patient base. You just can't. I don't see any way you can make that argument.
Yeah, and we have to remember that. Like, why are we here? Why are we doing what we're doing,
Yeah.
right? We're doing this for the love of dentistry and because we like doing this aspect of it. We want to provide patient care.
Yeah.
And I feel like access to care needs to be reminded that when we're recommending someone to come back for 3-month recalls and these recare appointments, but we can't get them in for 8 months.
Yeah.
How is that not an issue? That's an access to care issue.
For sure.
So we should be teaming up with who we have. We're not fighting against the hygienist. No, team up with the hygienist. You can have hygiene assistants as an EFDA. You can be tag teaming so that you can go in and actually provide more care to
Yeah.
patients.
It's kind of mind-boggling. I mean, I remember being in office and thinking assisted hygiene, depending on the hygienist we had, I was like, oh, we should totally do assisted hygiene because she would be great with it and she works hard. And then sometimes you're like, I'm not getting any assistant for this girl. Like, she's crazy, right? I mean, let's be honest. honest. It was that way.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, right. Like she doesn't deserve anything. So, but what the more I see of the industry, I do see that the offices that are less stressed and can see their patients are utilizing assisted hygiene, and they have an EFDA, somebody that can do radiographs, the scans, all, I mean, just even more than that, right? Like,
Everything. Yep.
so I do see that. And I've always wondered, and my hygiene colleagues, we just sit around and go, why has this not taken off? Why?
Yeah.
And, is it because of the money? Well, it can't be because of the money, because even the DSO world doesn't adopt assisted hygiene as much as they could. I mean, they really could like make it work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if you have any answer to this, or if it's just one of those things where we'll go, I don't
I
know.
don't know if people are going to like my answer to this.
I mean, I'm curious. I mean, honestly, you know where I am. I'm at the stage in my career where I'm like, whatever. So if you
Whatever.
feel like doing
What
that,
the EFDA?
yeah, right. Exactly. People, that's her slogan. What the EFDA. She has a program and a workbook. It's so funny. What the EFDA. When you said that you came up with that name, I was like, that is amazing. That's just amazing. So I don't know. What do you think? And you can be as gracious as you'd like about it.
So I will say that I think it is a comfort thing and staying in your lane. We are not trying to take a hygiene job away. We are not saying that we want to do SRPs all day long and that we know all about perio. No, because you know what? They were never trained in that. They can't do it. It has nothing to do with providing good care for the patient.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That is a completely opposite topic. You can provide all of those things that I mentioned before as a preventative EFDA and give better access to your patients. So look at your schedule, right? If you see that you have 10-year-old patients, 7-year-old patients in your column, adult, healthy 20-year-old patients that have no history of perio, have no history of calculus, great. Let's put them in an EFDA column. You just freed up 4 hours in your column that you could get in your SRPs and these people that are waiting 8 months that should be here in 3.
Wild.
Let's work smarter. You know what I mean? And let's provide the care.
It's wild because if you think about it, and this is where people are going to go, Tracy, you're crazy, but I really do think that this whole pre-appointing, there are pros and cons to pre-appointing hygiene. All right. And I always was, you and I were, you still are managing a practice, in your spare time, running your own business. We were brought up like, you don't leave without an appointment. The next appointment, like it was sacrilege, like go tackle him in the parking lot if you didn't schedule the next recare, right? And then a doctor was very, very smart about this. A doctor I really respect said, let's break this down. If I keep reappointing people, it's the same people 6 months down the road and they're healthy. 6 months down the road, healthy. That day I'm getting no scheduled treatment. So like my practice is slowly going to die if I keep reappointing people. So let's let people who want appointments. And so he went back to the whole reminders and even postcards, right? So people call when they want an appointment, and he's super busy. Could he be busier? Sure, but he's fine. He's happy.
Yeah.
But for what you're saying, if you're going to pre-appoint, like all those people in that schedule, you could pre-appoint them again, and you still already know your EFDA could handle it. So you could do that block scheduling. I feel like things are just like floating around. It's like this big ball of Tetris, and it just hasn't come together yet. Like it's wild.
I feel like there's people that just don't, they want to, column mentality. You know what I mean? Like they're only seeing their column and that is it. And you can't. You have to look beyond that, And we say that at our office. It's like you can't, it's a pediatric practice. We can have 8 columns in one day going every 30 minutes. You can't be column mentality.
Yeah.
You're there for the patient. So it's a patient mentality.
Yeah.
And if that means going to take x-rays on someone else's next patient, if that means seating them, flipping a chair, it doesn't matter. You do whatever needs to be done so that the next patient can be seen.
Well, and you quickly find out like who's got the team attitude, like who.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you probably have had people self-select out of an office because they're like, this is too much team for me.
Right. It's so true. I mean, we're very lucky with the team that we have. For a group of 18 women, they work wonderfully together, and to bring someone new, we've grown and grown and grown. And to bring someone new into the practice is tough.
Yeah.
Because you have to fit. You have to be able to have the mentality of, yes, I am here to help. What can I do next? And not just have that blinders on and I'm just here to do this and that's it. Well, that's not going to work. So
it's not my job. It's not my job. Like, okay, well, good. Well, how about taking a job somewhere else? Like, that's really
right.
what I wanted to say. Let me ask you about the trends that you're seeing with the expanded functions. I mean, just certification in general. One thing that came up, I think last year when it passed, was that Minnesota now is letting the assistants get trained to give injections, not the big block that everybody's thinking about, but everything else. Now, from what I see, there was, oh, this is great. And then there was, oh my gosh, this is awful. So there are two schools of thought. When I looked at the training program that the University of Minnesota put together, like, I don't know if I would have taken it. That's a lot of work just to be able to give some injections, right? Do you see more of that coming, or do you feel like that was such a hard battle? I don't know. Do you see anything like that happening in other states?
I don't. I think there was a lot of kickback about that just from what I've heard, like
Wow.
kind of through the grapevine. I know personally, I don't want to give injections and I don't want to have to get 30 injections either.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
But I think that down the road, I do foresee states taking on more and more duties that can be delegated.
Okay.
And how they do that is up to the state. I know in our state, it's fantastic because they kind of bundled everything underneath a scope of practice. So the doctor has the final say on what they feel they can delegate to someone. So there's some things that are not black and white, right?
Okay.
There's some things that it's the doctor's call because you are working underneath their license. But things like that, I do foresee eventually getting more and more integrated into different license. So if it's going to be under an EFDA that they're going to do local anesthesia, administer nitrous oxide, things like that, probably, yes. I see that happening down the road. Yeah.
Wow. As long as the person, like, I would want to make sure they ace the class. Like, don't graduate with a C. I'm not comfortable with that.
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
but that's fantastic. In Virginia, when hygienists could start giving injections, what a time saver. Oh my gosh. In fact, I think my doctor got spoiled. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, don't forget how to give them, because, she may take a vacation one day. That
And our
would help.
Maine, you really have a unicorn in a practice if you have a hygiene EFDA. So I've had a lot of hygienists come through the program.
Okay.
And people always say, why would a hygienist want to go to be an EFDA? They're not going to really get an increase in pay, to be honest. A little, but not huge because they're already at a higher level.
Right.
But the way that can change a practice, because they can do all those additional functions. So they can have a patient in their chair and they know that 30 occlusal needs to be done. They just took the x-rays. Yep, everything else looks great. The doctor comes in. Yep, 30 occlusal, perfect. They can numb them up right then and there. The doctor takes seconds to prep that tooth. The hygienist comes right around, who's an EFDA, can restore it. You're done. You don't have to reschedule the patient. It's done. One fell swoop. And it's so nice. So you really have a unicorn in our state anyways, because of what they can do. There's so much more. They can use lasers, in our state where an EFDA cannot. So they can do laser treatment. They're administering nitrous. They're administering local anesthetics.
I'm like, I want everyone to do this. Like, that would change dentistry.
Oh, it's huge.
Completely.
It's huge. Yep.
Wow. Well, and you said they were already at the height of their pay, but there's a lot of offices that would do collections or production,
Yep.
Based on net production.
Yep.
They would do a bonus based on that. So you
Absolutely. A
could
quarterly bonus.
totally make money
Yep.
doing that.
And I recommend that when I consult in offices, I recommend tracking what your EFDA is doing so that you can see how much you're elevating the practice. Let's see how much they're growing, for the practice. It's very evident. I mean, when it's utilized correctly, it can really change the whole trajectory of an office.
So you put together this workbook, and tell us a little bit about the workbook. You're able even to help with implementation of the workbook and everything. And I was telling her, like, she should charge more for this workbook. Honestly, like, when I saw that, I was like, you need to raise that fee. And she's like, no, this is what I like. And I was like, if I wrote this, it would be a lot more. I think it's a steal. So tell them about the workbook and whether or not they have, because it's what the EFDA, but it's not necessarily like you could do this with someone who's more advanced assisting wise, as long as they are under the limits of what they can do. But you point out lots of ways that they can take it to the next level with or without the license.
For sure. So many different states have different guidelines. So even if you're like an RDA, registered dental assistant, or a CDA, some of them, in each state, that's the highest you can go. So the first thing that you want to do is look up your scope of practice for your state. Know your parameters, know your guidelines. And that's the number one thing. So the workbook goes over how to utilize and implement an EFDA. But again, that could be a CDA, RDA, depending on what your state regulations are. It goes over a breakdown breakdown of, in our state in particular, some examples of everything that they can do. It talks about scheduling. It talks about coding with, okay, if these procedures are what's allowed, let's correlate that to a fee. Let's correlate that to a schedule. Let's see how we can take all of these things and help, implement them in the practice. And then we go over verbiage, because one of the biggest obstacles is the doctor letting go, to be honest. So the doctors, need a little nudge, little reminder sometimes to get out so that the HEFTA can finish. We go over a lot of different verbiage and techniques for the front desk for scheduling, for the hygienists on scheduling, and verbiage on how to communicate between checking out a patient up at the front to, this is an EFDA, schedule. It's okay to have the EFDA see this patient. So we go over a lot of that. And then there's also some red flags. Not everyone, there could be someone that's interested in becoming an EFDA. They might not have all of the know-how to do so.
Okay.
And they need the backing, from the staff and the doctor.
Yeah.
So just because they might have the interest to do it does not necessarily mean that they're going to get into the program or that they're going to be successful in the program.
Okay.
Because it does take a certain person to be able to get through it. So we kind of touch on that in the workbook. And then I dive into some management, of it as well, because a lot of EFDAs kind of integrate into a lead role. It's usually a go-to person in the practice. So we talk about some management techniques, communication techniques. And then I go into some team morale building in the back of the workbook as well, some different ideas on some little morale boosting and competitions for the office. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because a good friend of mine, we were talking about the fact that when we were baby managers, there wasn't this big emphasis on culture. Nowadays, like, everybody wants to make sure the culture is great. We're treating everybody with respect and stuff. And I feel like sometimes managers of my age forget, like, that is a very important thing, the whole team morale. And, I always said thank you. And I always said when you're doing a great job. And I felt like that was enough. And I don't think that's enough anymore. So it's good that you have that, because somebody like me needs to be reminded that just because I don't need to hear thank you a million times doesn't mean everybody doesn't like it,
Yeah.
So it's good that you've got that kind of stuff. That's that little manager in you coming out at the end.
Yeah. I try to do that. But now, if you ask the girls that work with me, that would be something different. Sometimes I go a little too extreme. I celebrate national holidays like it's, like it's a sport. So.
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So we got the new extra federal holidays. Are you going to take those into? Are you going to take advantage of
I'm
those?
more about food. I'm kind of food driven. So it's like, if it's, going to be National Cheese Day, I did like a 6-foot charcuterie board, and
It's
it's
so
like,
funny. So funny.
it's those kind of things. So.
Is there a state that if they called you and said, we need help, is there a state where you're like, not much we can help you with? I mean, are there states that are still behind kind of on the 8 ball with certification?
No, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that, I have no problem helping anyone anywhere, but we have to look at the state parameters first. I can only do within what's allowed. We can only kind of guide someone within the parameter of what's allowed, by their dental board. So that's the biggest thing, is really figuring out all that first. Danby has, their website is fantastic. You can click on any state and it will bring up basically what is allowed in that state.
Okay.
So it's a great website, to go to and use. So they're wonderful to have that resource.
We'll put a link in the show notes to that. And Danby, I love them over there. I mean, honestly, like, the fact that they saw the need for all the certification and gathering, and it's not just maintaining the certification, like all the other stuff that they track, like legislation and all that, like, it's really wild that, in fact, I think that should be bigger. Like, the fact that there's a professional association for assistants, because there really isn't a professional association for managers. There's memberships, there's groups, there's, whatever, but there's none like that professionally track legislation, professionally track, what you need for CE or compliance or anything like that.
Accountability, like absolutely accountability where,
Yeah.
okay, here's your license. What are you going to do to maintain that now? You
Yep.
have office managers being able to be sued because of, misappropriation of the way that they're, putting things in on their ledgers.
Yeah.
Well, how are they accountable?
They're not.
Who are they accountable to?
They go to the next office because,
Right.
and this is a big thing too, you ran into it with doctors, is they don't necessarily report when they have a bad employee because they're either embarrassed or whatever. And so that bad seed goes to another office until, until they make someone mad enough to, I said a bad word, until they make someone mad enough to actually say something. I was cracking up. I don't know if you saw it, but in one of the Facebook groups recently, a couple months ago, some lady said, watch out for this girl because she stole. And she put the picture up because she was convicted, put the picture up and
Oh, yeah.
said, and I was like, this is honestly, I don't have a problem with this. Like
Yeah.
now everybody in that geographic area is going to be on the lookout. And
Yeah.
I don't see a problem with that. I really
Because there's
don't.
people that think that they know what to do, and they think that they know that that's something is okay, and it's not, and the people that are experienced and have the experience, they know from trial and tribulation of this is not okay, or they know from their lawyer or what have you.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, throw the wolves out and we'll see what happens. But it would be great to have someone accountable for things.
Yeah, on the
Yeah.
management side for sure.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
let me ask you, I have two questions for you. One involves insurance, not my way of insurance, but like business insurance. Let me ask though this. You mentioned RDA,
Mhm.
CDA, and EFDA. Can you quickly run through what those are? Because there might be a brand new manager that's like, I don't think I have any of those in the office. Like, so
Yeah.
what are we talking about?
So I'll just give a quick overview. So for the basis of someone coming into an office has no experience as a dental assistant. In our state, and I would say the majority of states, you don't have to have experience to get trained as an assistant. You can hire them right off the street. So great, all well and good. Then there's the next level would be your RHS, which is your radiation health and safety. There's no prerequisite for that. You can apply to Danby and study and take the test for the RHS. You get your license for that state so that you can take x-rays.
Okay.
That is usually the standard baseline because every office wants their assistant to be able to take x-rays.
Very important though, if you're a new dentist, new manager, opening a practice, like don't skimp on this. Your person has to go. You got to do this. This is going to be a big problem for you if this is not in your office. Yeah.
And just because they get the training through Danby for their RHS, they still have to apply to their state to get a license.
Okay, good. Good.
So that is just because you have the RHS does not mean that you can take x-rays. You still have to get your state license. But when you take national board exams, those you can go to any state and then apply for state licensure because you already have that exam. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So
Okay.
So then the next level would be your CDA, which is a certified dental assistant, and that is made up of 3 components. And you have your infection control, you have your RHS, and then you have your general chair side. For infection control, there's no prerequisite either. You can just go and take the test, just like the radiology. What does that do for you other than give you a good insight to OSHA and how things are properly done in the office? There's nothing additional that you get. You still have to go for your general chair side.
Okay.
The prerequisite for that is that you do have to have 2 years of experience before you can apply for that exam.
Okay.
So when you take your general chair side, you need your CPR certification, 2 years of experience, and then you can study to take that test.
Okay.
So then you have those 3 components that makes up your CDA. So then RDA is pretty much the same, but it depends on what state you go to, if they recognize RDA or CA.
Okay. So interchangeable.
Yep, whether it be registered or certified.
So you do all of these tests with Danby, but then you apply still to your state.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So depending on what your state recognizes will depend on your licensure.
Okay. All
Yep.
right.
So you can have your certification. So for example, I lived on the border of New Hampshire. I was a Maine resident but worked in New Hampshire. I had my CDA in New Hampshire before EFDAs were approved.
Okay.
So I could do the majority of things on patients because they recognized a CDA in New Hampshire.
Got it. Okay.
Maine does not. Maine recognizes an EFDA, but you have to become a CDA in order to become an EFDA, but they don't recognize a CDA as its own entity.
They're bordering states.
That's yes. So there's a lot of, you have to know your state regulations.
Okay. Okay. And the state board would be a good place to look,
Yep.
right? Or
Yep.
Department of Health or
The dental board.
okay.
Yep.
The dental
The
board.
dental board is going to tell you what you need and what they recognize.
Okay.
And every state is different. And even as an EFDA, every state is different.
Okay.
So if they recognize EFDA licensure, if I went and applied to Oklahoma and I said, okay, I have my Maine license and I can do these tasks, they could say, no, we'll recognize your EFDA license, but you can only do these tasks.
Wow.
So it's very state specific. So you need to know the laws on what's allowed. Yep.
So one of the big things coming out now is doing some sort of compact with hygiene and dental licenses, right? Like, would that be rolled up in that compact as well, or not really? Okay.
No, I think that's more so out west right now because there's such a shortage of hygiene. They're really trying to either do a condensed program of hygiene, which is fine. You know what I mean?
Right.
If they do that, that's fine. It really hasn't hit up here because we have some big schools up here that, offer hygiene. We have one in state that's wonderful, but they're just not
Okay.
cranking out enough, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's a problem. So in Virginia, I think we have EFDA, but we also have DA1 and DA2, which it was really interesting because they passed it and said, yeah, we can do this. And then like no one signed up, like very little uptick in it. And I mean, I'm kind of befuddled, like, why not? And I don't know if it's because maybe the pay wasn't commensurate or whatever, but it was like, why did we pass this? And then like nobody's signing up to take these classes. But you've got to be in a place like if all of the people are in Northern Virginia and the class is in Southern Virginia, or, in your state, like, there's certain areas of the state, like not everybody's going to, your state's big, lots of
Huge.
hours. Yeah. So to
Yeah,
drive across, like,
huge.
I remember
Yep.
when I went to visit and I'm like, hey, what about that main cabin master's place? Is it right around the corner? And you're like, no, it's like way over there, like hours away. And I'm like, oh, really? I can't just run over to it. Same thing with Virginia. So,
Yeah.
and with most states. And so, yeah, if you're going to do a DA2, don't just have like one place that it's taught. And I think that's what you're running into. Like,
Yeah, so
you
right
know?
now I have in March, I'm hoping to offer a spring course up in Presque Isle. That's about 4 hours away.
Oh, gosh.
We have to make sure that we have, a good class size to make it worth it to go up there. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
I just had in my last class, I had a girl from Presque Isle that drove down every other week.
Wow.
So, and she was dedicated and she's amazing, and the office she works at was amazing. They put her up in a hotel. They, you know what I mean, sent her down. So it's truly an investment. And I tell the doctors it's a very little amount that they have to pay for the return that they're going to get. They look at a price and they're like, oh my gosh. And it's like, well, no. Let's talk about in 1 month, you know what I mean? That EFTA is going to double, if not triple, what you just paid.
And I mean, even if you're looking at the financial ROI, the fact is finding good people and then showing that you want to invest in them. Like, honestly, you can't put a price on that. Like, people in this market, even my cold manager heart in this market, like, I would be so touched if my boss said, you know what, I think that you're worth this. Let's
Yep.
do it. And that's pretty amazing. So I think that's a good way to go. And it kind of lends itself to that conversation you and I were having in the pregame, where basically when people are quitting, it's not like they're quitting and going other places in dentistry because childcare is so expensive and they're just staying home. If they've got kids, they're staying home, or maybe they're caregivers to, parents. But we are losing not just assistants in hygiene, but even managers. We're
Yeah,
losing a lot of people.
absolutely.
So this would be a great way to kind of say, hey, I really value you.
Showing the value in someone, it makes them want to show up.
Yes.
They take pride in what they do. They've been there for so many years and they have a relationship with you and the practice. They're there for a reason. And those are the ones that you want to invest in,
Yeah.
and they'll appreciate the value. They'll appreciate it so much that, they're going to help you end the practice.
Right. So I remember the second question that I had because I went off topic again. Sorry. When you get your license, are you now required to hold any insurance about like malpractice, or are you covered under the doctor? What's that about?
Yeah, so you're covered under the doctor,
Okay.
but a lot of my hygiene EFTAs also carry a policy themselves because they already had one as a hygienist.
Okay.
So you just let, your carrier know that you started picking up additional duties, but your doctor's liability insurance will cover an EFTA under you, just like a hygienist under you.
Do we need to notify the doctor's insurance that there is that extra provider? Like, is that a good best practice to notify
I think it's
them?
a good practice, yeah,
Okay.
but it doesn't have to be because it falls under their scope just like a hygienist would. You
Okay.
don't have to notify them when you hire another hygienist, so.
Right. Okay. It's good to know.
But I don't veer people away from, carrying independent insurance at all because that's their prerogative to do so, and I don't think you can ever have too much
Peace of mind.
coverage. Yeah.
Peace of mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Peace of
gotcha.
mind
I
is
gotcha.
good.
I mean, listen, America is litigious. Love America, but definitely litigious, right? So you're doing the classes in person in Maine, but what if somebody's listening and they're like, okay, I want to learn more, but I'm not in Maine. So how the heck are you going to help them, Stacey?
So, great question. So, I've definitely been reached out to about consulting in other areas, and I will gladly do so. You can go to my website, talkteethtome.com, and reach out to me. I will gladly set up, something we can do remotely, or, fly me out and I'll gladly kind of go over your practice and see different ways to elevate the practice too, and who's there, who would make a good EFDA. If you have one on staff, fine, let's see what they're doing and what we can kind of pivot a little bit to make things a little easier to work on scheduling, work on communication, and increase production. So a lot of people that have gone to school aren't being utilized. I've talked to a lot of people that have gone to EFDA school and then they get back to their practice. They've gotten in their hours, they've gotten their license, but then it's kind of gone by the wayside. And I hate to hear that, because it's like, this is an ongoing profession. You constantly, if you don't use it, you lose it, and
Wow, that's really sad. Is it because, like, what if they were in charge of the scheduling? Like, if they were doing this, it wouldn't go away. So is it a miscommunication up front? Like, maybe the admin team isn't
I think
utilizing them? Like, what's going
I
on
think
there?
when we talk about like short staffing, it
Yeah.
goes just the opposite, right?
Okay.
So the reins get pulled back in by the doctor and they just buckle down. And they forget that it's just the opposite, where you could be utilizing this person rather than having them go backwards and start regular DA skills again and four-handed dentistry. They could be doing that dentistry so you could go to another operatory and start prepping a tooth. And they forget.
Yeah.
The EFDAs go through a lot of work. The dentist goes through a lot of work to have the EFDA on staff. So
Mhm.
I think it's a constant reminder. It's something that always has to be massaged.
I always like talking to people who are like experts in their niche in dentistry, because just like with insurance, I could probably take a look at someone's schedule and ledger and point out like 5 different things that
Yeah.
you wouldn't see because you're looking at it every day. You would walk into an operatory and see 5 different things that to me are normal. So I don't know if you have never availed yourself of a consultation, an hourly consultation, or a consult with somebody who's good in that field. I think it's worth it, because like you really could pick out like a handful of things just based on a conversation that are worth it. So I
Yeah.
would urge you all, if you're interested in doing this for your practice, or maybe you've done it and you're like, where did we go wrong? Like, get in touch with her or whomever you went through the program with initially and say, what's going
Yeah.
on here? What the EFDA?
What the EFDA?
What the EFDA? I love it. Oh my gosh. So, but you've got the workbook, but you're doing webinars and you're doing a little bit more speaking too.
I am, yeah. I'm branching back out into the speaking a little bit. I have 2 classes. One is What the EFDA, and that we go over basically the workbook and kind of everything that it encompasses
Yep.
on trying to utilize, an EFDA in the practice. And then the other one is Mentoring and Motivating. And that is a great class so that it really hones in on each person in the practice, whether it be an admin role, a hygiene role, an assistant role, a steri tech role, it doesn't matter. We take whatever position you have and we talk about ways to elevate that person in that role and different ways so that you can utilize who and what you have in a practice, especially in this time.
Short staffedness.
A little bit of short staffing going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the other one that I talk about.
Well, and to my friends who listen, who are meeting planners or putting on their study clubs, I get a lot of questions saying, who's good in this area, who's good in this area. And there's only a handful of assistants who are speaking on this. And so one of the things I hear from, and Kevin Henry, who's spoken to assistants for years, so they'll say, we need more people to speak on dental assisting. Who do you know? And, it's usually Shannon Pace Brinker, Kevin, Julie Varney. So, I mean, there's 1 or 2 others I'm sure I'm missing, but I know from speaking to the ones I just named, like, we can't do this forever. We've been doing this. And honestly, even if I gave a fantastic class every time, people want to hear a different voice, a different viewpoint, right? So, I mean, I think it's great that you're putting your hat out there in the ring, because assistants, I got to tell you, like, assistants aren't typically like, hey, I want to go hit the circuit and get on a stage.
Right.
Assistants are like, I want to just work in the office. So it's kind of
Yeah.
a unicorn. You're kind of a unicorn yourself to do this. So I do hope people take you up on the offer and, webinars, study clubs, whatever. So I think in order for us to get a handle on the staffing issue, we have to come up with something different. Like, we can't just keep hiring off the street and hoping it takes. Like,
Right.
we've got great talent there.
We
Like,
do.
let's
We
do
need to
it.
recognize
So,
who we have and invest in them for sure.
yeah, absolutely. So, are you a dental biller feeling overwhelmed and isolated? I get it. The world of revenue cycle management is complex and ever-changing. That's why I created Dental Revenue Network. Our membership community was created to help you become a better revenue cycle manager and small business operator. Say goodbye to feeling alone and hello to a supportive community of dental billing professionals. Here's what you'll get: monthly billing-focused meetings with peers and experts, business building sessions to elevate your career, resource libraries tailored for billers and billing company owners, introductions to cutting-edge RCM technologies and companies, and a vibrant community for networking and support. Ready to transform your dental billing experience? Visit dentalrevenuenetwork.com today. Don't wait. Join us now and navigate the business of RCM with confidence. All right. How do they find you? What's the name of your site again, Stacey?
Yes, thank you. My website is Talk Teeth to Me, the number 2, me, and all of my contact information is on there. My cell phone, you can reach out to me directly. I will get back to you. And like I said, I will be happy to set up webinars and consultations. Whatever you're interested in, I'm more than happy to do so.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right. Well, thanks for coming back on the podcast. And
Yes, thank you for having me so much.
anytime, anytime. You're like one of my favorite people, and I see you
Oh,
on the road in classes and your whole office. I love your whole office. So,
oh, thank you. I do too.
yeah, I mean, you were supposed to speak at the Pediatric Dental Group Summit with Malika and Manal,
Yeah.
and you unfortunately had an illness and was very bummed. And so we were all like,
Broke my heart.
I know. I was like, where is she? I'm waiting to see her. And they're like, oh, let's
Yeah.
talk. I was like, man. So,
They had a great time though. They brought me back some good souvenirs. So
we had such a good time. It's a great, it's a really great event. I mean, Manal and Malika, another example of the niches in dentistry. Finally,
yeah,
it's not just a class, it's one size fit all. And hopefully
yeah,
person A gets something out of this and person B gets something. Like, we really do need more focused classes, for the
sure.
people who really want to take them. So, and I'm sure they'll have you back, I'm sure, because they were bummed too. So we'll have you back. But so thank you for coming on. And dear listeners, as always, I appreciate that you spend your time with me.
If you learned something new today, subscribing is the best way to support the channel and keep learning with us.
We're all super busy, so thank you for making time for me today. The show notes will have any links that we referenced in the episode. You can also find links for my book, events, and my online insurance course, Dental Insurance Design and Management. I speak often around the country on management and insurance issues. Come hang out with me in one of my classes. I promise you'll laugh and learn.